book. It was challenging, the first one.
Because he wanted to be in the place of love.
Somebody came up with the idea.
And he was 100% accurate in his prediction.
Plenty of iodine or calcium. You don't have to know any of that stuff. All you have to be able to do is chew.
I'm Cheryl Glover. I'm not Arena. I'm filling in for her. But both of us represent the Pathwork Center. And the Pathwork Center is a very interesting process that we have developed. The process is 25 years old. It's not new. It comes from channeled transmissions. And the channeled transmissions give us a deep and complete set of wisdom that we call actually a guidebook. It's a guidebook to life. It's about life and how you can transform your life from one point in your life all the way through a very healthy set of personalities where you are totally, totally functional. Now, when we say functional, we don't just mean functional as, you know, you're going to work every day and everything happens. We mean complete and total wonderful relationships. We mean the depth of your soul where you find your truth. We mean the absolute understanding of what your life purpose is and some of the things that prevent you from fulfilling truly and 100% who you are and what your soul purpose is. That includes relationships, it includes love, it includes attraction of money, it includes how you are with other people, it includes getting rid of some of the childhood hurts and maybe the childhood tapes that run completely in our minds in everything that we do. Having said that, that's a lot, right? How many agree that's a lot, right? Okay, so I'm promising you the world. And there isn't any reason 100% you should believe this, except what I'm going to tell you is a little bit about what the path did for me. What the path did for me is, like you just heard, okay, I'm an author, I'm a public speaker, I run workshops, I'm a spiritual teacher, I am also a business person. I have a lot going for me. I have good relationships, my children love me, I love them, I love my parents, and my parents love me. All of this was not the case about 15 years ago. Not at all, and not in the least way. When I came to the path, what I found was there was a whole bunch of pain that I had, and I didn't know it. Every single morning of my life, I woke up in pain. I'd get out of bed and I'd feel this tightness in my heart. Where did that pain come from? Well, for one reason, I was a victim of a large tragedy about 25 years ago. And this tragedy took me to the place where I had pushed it down. I had pushed every feeling that I had down to where I did not know I was in pain. I didn't even know it. I wasn't aware of it. I was assaulted, I was stabbed, I was raped, I was all these things. Now, I'm sitting out here telling you this. What I want to make you understand is that 15 years ago, I could not even mention it. Here I am, camera running, public, speaking to a lot of people, and if you notice, no pain. Why is that? Because of this system. Because of this system, I have no pain. I have, for one thing, been able to accept. For another thing, I have been able to forgive. For a third thing, I have been able to take that power and that tragedy and turn it to what the path says into a spiritual process. Something that made me stronger, something that made me deeper, something that made me understand completely and totally what my purpose on this planet was and where I could take that. and how powerful I was, and how an understanding of how tragedy can work into a positive manner in you. That's my story. And was it difficult? You know what? It wasn't magic overnight. It was a number of different sessions that I went through, a number of different sessions, a number of people who would listen to me, a number of what we call pathwork helpers that helped me through that process. And when I came to the other side of that process, I was able to function. Because most people with my story would have been in therapy for years and years and years and years and years. Not only had I suffered a major tragedy, I also was in the middle of a divorce. I was in the middle of a whole bunch of economic problems. Everything was going wrong in my life, and it was the path that saved my life. Literally, because otherwise I would not be standing up here before you. I would not be capable of telling you this story if it wasn't for the path. I would have been some, I don't know, nut job that was just constantly going to therapy and therapy and therapy. I would not have gone from utter tragedy to utter success. So how do we do this? Okay. I've mentioned that this is a number of channeled, what we call lessons. Okay? And these lessons are so deep and so profound that they touch you in a way where you understand the spiritual meaning. Now, where it comes from is Eva Perakis was a channel. And from the 1950s to the 1980s, she gave us these channels in transmissions that have been first translated, because the original ones were in German, and then written down, where we have certain books that have come out of these channels, and we have all the paperwork. And in addition to that, we have taken these channels, and formed a system around them, because the channel, what we call the guide, is this wonderful, beautiful channel that gives us information that tells us how to raise our consciousness. Now, how many people here want to raise their consciousness? Is there somebody here who wants to raise their consciousness more than ever? I want you to just stand up. Who's the person here who really wants to raise your consciousness? Okay. Is there somebody else who wants to raise their consciousness? There we go. Okay, I can sign that back at our booth later. Okay. So what does the guide tell us? What are these lessons that are so deep? What are some of the lessons? How many here have heard about The Secret? Come on, come on. Everybody's heard about The Secret just about, right? Very popular book. Okay, The Secret goes ahead and tells you that what is in your mind, you can create, right? And whatever you create, you can manifest that just by focusing on the positive. Has anybody tried it? You've tried it, right?
Trying my best.
You're trying your best. Good point. Okay, so there's a secret about the secret, and the guide tells us the secret about the secret. And the guide told us the secret about the secret 25 years ago, way before The Secret. Because, yes, it is absolutely true that what we focus on, we manifest. And the Pathwork way of meditation, the guide tells us, is about creating through meditation. So our process of meditation assists you in creating those positive links and positive thoughts that you have. However, the guide also tells us what stops us from creating. And that is deep in our subconscious, there are other inner thoughts They get in the way of the positive thoughts. And the guide gives us a method to take those negative thoughts, those negative, what we call recreations of certain pain that you might have, and overcome them. Bring them to the creative force. Bring them to the spiritual force, the creative force, and actually manifest those out in the world instead of creating what's in our subconscious. How many people know that when you put light on your subconscious and when you bring those subconscious forces into the current world, you can then heal them? How can you heal something you can't see? You don't know you have. So pathwork is a process of revealing for us our deepest psychology and then bringing them to the light and then bringing a spiritual process of creation in. So we want to talk about love. I was in a pathwork, what we call process, and it was a silent weekend. And that weekend was about using the pathwork meditation process to create something. And I had been divorced now like 5 years, and I decided I wanted a relationship. So here's the power. In that one weekend, I wrote down everything I wanted in a relationship. And I used the pathwork process. And within 30 days, I was in a relationship. That's the power. That's the power of pathwork. Now, are we saying this is easy? No. Why isn't it easy? Because what this is about is revealing the depth of your soul, revealing what is deeply inside of you. And the guide tells us that even our processes, even our very being in this planet is imperfect. And the more we accept that imperfection and that we are, and I love this, the guide calls it perfectly imperfect. So every word I say is perfectly imperfect. And there, you could sit there and say, oh, she didn't say this and she didn't say that, and there's going to be a whole bunch of things that I'm not going to say. And that's because it's perfectly imperfect. So how many people need to be perfect? Anybody? Certain areas, okay? Certain areas of our life, there are certain things you need to be perfect in. And what happens? What happens when you have to have perfection? You can't do it. You can't do it. There's a portion of us that's because that perfection is on the other side. We call it heaven, or we call it, the ultimate consciousness, for example. So on the other side is that perfection, and in the pathwork system, we kind of remember that. We know where we came from, and that perfection is something inside our heart, something inside our soul, something we want, but we're here, unfortunately, and here, or fortunately, and here means we cannot achieve that perfection. So the guide goes into some other processes in here, because when we try to achieve perfection, we force our will. And when we force our will on something, what happens? Come on, everybody knows. What happens when we force our will on something? Doesn't work. We usually get the opposite. Okay? Back to why we can't manifest, even though we know the processes. Okay? So the more we force our will, the more it gets elusive. It goes away from us. It goes into what the guide calls the abyss. Okay? Remember, the guide was channeled a number of years ago, so there's some ancient words there, but that's okay. We can modernize them, because it's not perfect. Right? Okay. So the more we force our will, something that the guide calls a forcing current, the more that current pushes away from us. And so the pathwork process is about finding inside ourselves our forcing current. our inability to accept our own imperfections, our inability to know that deep inside our subconscious and our ego is pushing on something, forcing something. And the guide comes back and says, what do we need to do? And you've heard this phrase, let go and let God. Now that's a nice phrase, but the guide in Pathwork takes this a step further. It's not just let go and let God. It's something more. The guide says, continue the struggle and cease the struggle. Now, what does that mean? I struggled with this, okay? When I'm listening to this, I'm reading this. Continue the struggle and cease the struggle. What could that possibly mean? But I'm going to tell you this because I want to show you how profound this is. It does make sense. It makes 100% sense. Well, 98, imperfectly imperfect. So, okay, perfectly imperfect. Okay, so it makes sense because we have free will and we are powerful beings. We know we are powerful beings. We have the power of creation, and the guide tells us how to do that. So we have the power of creation. Remember, we talked about the secret. What's the secret? We have the power of creation. However, and we have to do the planning. We have to make a struggle. We have to make our business plans. We have to create our businesses. We have to find our inner ego. We have to find that lower self of ourselves that the guide talks about that maybe isn't creating this wonderful world for it, not creating the relationships we want, not creating the love we want. So we have to struggle to find all of those things because we are here in the human experience. We must do this. However, we must cease the struggle. And that doesn't mean anything that I just talked about. What it means is we must let go of the outcome. Because the universe, we are one soul, the universe has to return what it can to you in a power current that moves, the guide says, from the positive to the negative and all around, and it's still one current. One energy force. And so when we're in that energy force, we want to be in that positive side of the energy force, and if we force it, we lose it. So what we have to do is struggle for it and then let go of the outcome in everything. Put your money on the horse and let go. And that's a bad example, but that's basically it. Yes? Okay. Okay, I'm hard of hearing. Mary Ellen's going to tell me what the question is.
What happens when, can you just speak up more?
Sure. What happens when you truly do let go? You do your part, you let go of the outcome, but the manifestation doesn't occur. Then what's the interference?
Okay, good question. Because this is about the Pathwork process, so let me use that exactly as the process. Somewhere down deep, we're going to talk about pain now. Somewhere there was a pain in the creation. This is what the guide says. Usually it comes from a childhood hurt, but it also can come from a past life, from karma. It can come from a current situation. It's some pain. And here's what we do in pain. Guess what we do? Anybody here in medical field? Nurse, doctor, somebody? No? Anybody here had a shot? Anybody here ever had an inoculation? Yeah? Okay. Okay. When we take a shot in our arm, okay, what happens if you tighten up your arm? It hurts more. Okay? So we live our life taking pain and tightening it up and pushing it down into our subconscious. I'm really going to get to the answer soon, don't worry. Okay? So we push that down into our subconscious. There's a pain there because we weren't willing to what? Feel it. We weren't willing to feel it. And because we weren't willing to feel it, we made it harder for ourselves. We did it. So we pushed this pain down completely, totally, 100% and forgot about it, just like me. I told you, I was an assault victim. Okay, here was a rape, here was an attack, I was stabbed in the heart. Okay, all of these things happened to me, and I didn't want to feel it, didn't want to remember it, I couldn't remember it. Till the path, I couldn't even remember it. I knew I was assaulted, obviously. You know, I have a scar. I knew I was stabbed. I knew I had all these things that came up, but I could not remember it. So guess what was happening in my subconscious is I would try to manifest something great because I have capabilities, because the guide says we are spiritual beings. I knew I had that capability, but it could not manifest because there was pain that was my ego didn't want out in the world. It wasn't willing to feel. So the guide says is feel it, all your feelings, and get it over with. So if we take the shot and relax, the pain of the moment, we allow that pain to feel through us. And we don't push it down into our subconscious, and it doesn't come back later into something that stops our ability to create. Does that answer that question?
Somewhat.
Okay, come back again. You want more?
I mean, pain is a part of life. Everybody
Yes.
has pain all the time. I'm not sitting here all day long and experiencing pain. Some of it I just ignore and I just go on in my day, but it's not stopping me from accomplishing things or have things happen. So what's the difference?
Because what happens is the guide says is as we push down that pain, we have not at all come to a recognition, and our ego protects us in what we call defense, and we create certain defenses. And these defenses is what keeps you from manifesting, keeps me from manifesting. Let me give you an example. My biggest defense is this, and it's very simple. When I was 3 years old, Saturday morning, my brother was 2 years older than me. So he was 5 and I was 3. He was responsible enough that when we got up in the morning, my mother would continue sleeping on Saturday mornings because she didn't want to wake up, okay? And we would go watch cartoons, typical things. So it was about 10 o'clock. My brother got tired. We were hungry. We decided to wake her up. So we ran into my mother's bedroom, opened the door, jumped on the bed. And when we jumped on the bed, my mother hugged my brother and said, "Oh, I love you," and turned to me, toddling in, I was only 3, and said, "Oh, look, the baby's jealous." Okay. Now, I was unaware of this event for a very long time. But this one statement set up my whole life. The reason I couldn't manifest relationships was because there was a continuous tape inside of me saying, I'm not loved. See, my mother loves my brother, but not me. And I'm not as good as men. See, she loves him, not me. And I'm jealous. And this tape ran over and over and over again. So no matter what kind of relationship I would try to manifest in the positive, I would end up being jealous because in my subconscious I was convinced that I was jealous because my mother told me that. Okay? And no matter what I did, I mean, and I'm a strong, confident person. One would never think that I would be jealous of that. But it would just come up, and my actions all of a sudden would be defended against my feeling any kind of jealousy. So anytime a man would, oh, I need some time alone. Oh, my gosh, no. And so those actions came out without my knowing it. So the pathwork is about revealing that inner self to you, and then helping you to manifest, basically, to create, to find what it is in there. And when we feel our pain and the current, so what is the pathwork? Let me tell you how I got over that. I spent a week in a process that we call dying into the pain. What does that mean? It meant that I they put me through a process, basically the path, where through my helper's help, and the helper is just somebody who helps you on the path, or kind of therapists, and through my helper's help, they put me into a process where I was willing to feel rejection, because jealousy is about not wanting to be rejected. I was rejected by my mother. I didn't want to be rejected. So I spent a week dying into the pain of rejection. I lived it, I breathed it, I worked with it, I raised my children with it, and during that week I would just separate myself and die into the process of rejection. Rejection. Why? Because the guide says this deep emotional pain often feels like death to us. It feels like we're going into an abyss. It feels like we have no substance under our ground and that we're going to fall into it. So we're not willing easily to do. Now, sometimes it's easier for some people than it is for other people. And everybody has a different level, but everybody has something. Because if you don't have something, then you would have manifest this wonderful, prosperous, incredible life. And some people do that. And that's what's on the other side of the path. What the path is about is finding your joy. That's what it's about. Not finding your misery. It's about finding your joy, because once you're beyond fear, doubt, rejection, hate, anything that's negative, you come back to joy and happiness. For the first time in my life, I woke up one morning after a Pathwork weekend, and I felt joy. I didn't even know what it was. I was like, what is this? What is this incredible feeling that I'm feeling? Oh, jump for joy. This is unbelievable. I found my joy. It was on the other side of the pain. Worth it. Worth every minute, worth every second I spent in the path. And that's why I'm here today. And that's the only reason I'm here today. Other things that happen is that on the other side, when you find joy and happiness, you find a deep connection to your own soul and the souls of other people. And you see them as beautiful souls. There's a saying, right? Namaste, right? Okay? You can literally see. And the guide says that love is actually just seeing God in the other person. It's a mirror of your soul. And that soulfulness comes through. You can see it. And so all the fear disappears, all the doubt disappears, and there's an inner peace. And so, ultimately, the path is about finding that inner peace for yourself. That help? Okay.
I guess I'm just wondering why, if I want to find a light, why I have to investigate the darkness to do so.
Well, the guide tells us that is actually just a continuous light. Basically what is happening is that there's an energy current where that darkness is just a circle that we travel through. And if we can just pass through that, you really don't have to explore it. What you have to do is almost reveal it. Reveal the spirit, reveal the light, reveal that. And in revealing that, you find more of the light, because we are the light.
Kind of letting it flow through you and then out of you rather than grasping and making bigger.
Exactly. And one of the reasons for that is that the guide talks about we recreate certain patterns. Anybody have patterns they recreate over and over and over again? So mine was I was recreating violence, not just in my attack, but in the men I attracted. It would be recreated over and over and over, and it came from my childhood, which was violent. And what happened was basically I got hooked in childhood because of when a parent is violent, Okay, you get hooked on that energy because you don't know any different. So I just had to unhook myself. And sometimes different levels for different people, you have to just let go and unhook some of that. And when you unhook some of that, you find on the other side of it the light. 10 minutes, okay. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what our process is and what we have. We have 258 channels that were given to us. Incredible amount. These channels cover everything you could possibly think of. It's a guidebook for us on how to live our life in balance, in joy, in happiness, in what we call undefended. So that, well, a good example is in public speaking training. In public speaking training, before the path, I couldn't get through it. Why? Because in public speaking class, what they do is they heckle us. Anybody here want to heckle me? It's okay, you can heckle me. But you can't heckle most people. Why? Because the ego comes in and says, "Ooh, I don't want to look bad." Okay, I'll look bad. That's okay. This is part of public speaking training. You have to look bad. It's also part of the path. You have to be able to look bad. So, okay, I did something wrong. Sorry. Okay, I'm not perfect. Okay. So that if you want to heckle me, that's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm okay because the path has shown me that my ego doesn't really have to defend it. It's not going to make any difference to you or to me. I don't have to force the issue. When you come to, even if I'm right, I don't even have to force the issue. Why? Because everybody comes to seeing what they need to see in a time frame that they need to see it. And that's one of the things that is truly spiritual, in that we can literally let go because each of us are on a different level of a path at any time frame. We each have different experiences, different karma, different parents, different social situations, and we cannot judge where another person is on that path. And so if you're going to turn up and say, I hate the color of your clothes, or, what you're speaking about doesn't make sense to me, that's okay with me. And that's what I had to do to get through public speaking class, because there was always especially mine was business training. You had all these corporate executives come up, I'm like, what are you telling me, little girl? That type of thing. They were really nasty. So I had to get rid of it. But that's the power in there. So what we do is a number of different things. You're welcome to our Friday night program. Once a month, we do a free program where we go over one of the lessons that the guide has given us. And one of our teachers will be there talking about the lecture. You might get to hear the actual channel, which is an interesting process in itself because the energy is absolutely incredible. We will process it, what we call process it, and we'll put you through an exercise to help you understand the depth and the profound meaning of this channel and why the guide, or Eva gave us the guide's words through that. And this is free. It's in what location? Okay. And we have them, when you come back we have some pens up here. If you come back to our booth, we will give you a bookmark, and in that bookmark there is our website, and on our website is all our programs. We also have some, workshops that we do. We have some what we call smaller programs. We have a whole bunch of different things, all the way down to actually becoming very involved in the path. We are a community of thousands. There are how many centers across the world? 20. At least, what is it? 20 centers all across the world, from South America to Germany to all through Europe We have a little Italian one. We have them all over. The Pathwork Foundation we have a convention once a year. And the say it again?
Once every 2 years.
I can't hear you.
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years. Thank you. Perfectly imperfect. See? And so these are actually, we have what we call helpers, which are people who mentor you, who help you along the path to assist you through the process. We have a whole bunch of different functions. We have other places that you can go, not just New York. You can go down to Virginia and take classes. You can go out to California. Again, we have over 20 centers all around the world. Any questions before we... 4 minutes, okay. Any questions? No.
14th.
What?
November 14th.
November 14th is the day of, is the first Friday night that I'm inviting you to. That's the free Friday night. And I don't know what the topic is. Yeah. so it will be very soon. Finally, what I'd like to end with, and to just let you know, is that this is a process that takes you from creating a life that might be painful, a life that might be just okay, and taking it to the next step where you can find your joy, your happiness, your ability to have comradeship with another person, your ability to open your heart to love, your ability to see yourself in your truth, and to find your true self. Because when you come down to the common denominator, what Pathwork is about is finding your true soul and wearing that soul out into this planet so that you may also be that leader, because it's only by our souls we should choose leaderships. Right now we're facing an election, right? Choose by your soul. Do not choose by your left brain. For the leader with the heart, the leadership that we can find that comes from that heart is truly connected to the divine. And in everything we do, we want our true selves connected to the higher power. And that's where our power lies. That's where our healing lies. And that's where our path is. And that's why we call it Pathwork. Thank you all.